Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, as a tie-in to the upcoming Superman film that's coming out in less than a month, we are pitting the Green Lantern guy Gardner against Gorr the God Butcher. Now, you may remember Gorr from the terrible movie Thor Love and Thunder, and you'll be seeing Guy in the Superman movie, which is why this is a tie-in.
The equally terrible Superman movie you forgot to say.
Oh, it's going to be amazing, dude.
It's gonna suck! I'm just putting that out there.
It's not even going to be comparable to Thor Love and Thunder. It's going to be infinitely better, because that was like the worst thing Marvel's ever put out.
One of the worst things for sure. Christian Bale definitely deserved better. But yeah, this will be an interesting one. I kind of feel bad for Guy Gardner because I think he's going to get the shit kicked out of him by Gorr. I just don't see any other way this fight's going to go down.
You know, I just realized this is kind of a similar battle to what we did with our White Lantern versus Null episode.
Yeah, except the characters of Null and White Lantern are much more powerful than Guy Gardner and Gorr.
Okay, cool. It's a lesser episode of that then. Sweet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I'm still looking forward to it. I know there's a lot of Guy Gardner fans out there. I don't really think there's any Gorr fans, but we're going to find out who's going to win between the two characters later on in this episode.
I'm a Gorr fan.
You would be. Gross.
What?
Before we get into the battle, we're going to break down the comic book movie news from the past week, of which we got quite a few news items. We learned that John Bernthal's Punisher is going to join the fourth Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day. Clayface was cast in his film, and we got the official trailer for Sandman Season 2. As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, though, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you want even more from this podcast? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier gives you access to our Discord chat server, the Fantastic 4 tier gives you 2 bonus episodes each month, and the X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of this show. Lastly, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier lets you create your own podcast using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results. Pitch the twins your ideas via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Guys, be sure to tune into the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including the Console Combat Podcast, where hosts John and Dean simulate battles between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they reviewed Kingsglaive Final Fantasy XV.
Over on the Max Destruction podcast, hosts Scotty and Gilly pit your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. This week, the brothers are pitting the White Ranger and his Tiger Zord against Servo from the Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
And on the Senjo World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime and manga characters. In his next episode, Zach is going to review K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all of the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network.
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week, we asked you guys, What has been your favorite Superman moment from past films or television series, and why?
We got 5 answers this week. We're going to break down our 3 honorable mentions before revealing the week's no prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Travis Herndon, who said,
What's up, dynamic dudes? Travis here. Shout out to my evil twin. So my choice would be from the movie Superman versus the Elite, the instant lobotomy. That scene was just straight up badass. Because one, we never seen heat vision used that small to go through somebody's eye and like fuck up their powers and stuff eternally without them knowing. So to me, instant lobotomy is the best Superman moment for me, hands down.
Yeah, so Superman versus the Elite was a direct-to-video animated film based off of Action Comics 775, which was titled What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, in which Superman goes up against a group of anti-heroes known as the Elite, who kind of try and make Superman seem like he's obsolete. And when he turns their bad guy rules against them, he kind of shows them that, hey, you're lucky I don't play in a moral gray area like you guys do. One of the things he did, of course, was take away the powers of the leader, Manchester Black. And he did it in the most, badass way.
Yeah, it was kind of an ethically shaky action on behalf of Superman, right?
I agree.
Because what he did is he combined his X-ray vision with his microscopic vision / telescopic vision, I think, and his heat vision. You think that he could do this all the time against other villains. I'm not sure why he doesn't, I guess because it's a morally shaky action. But it's definitely an interesting feat for the character. I remember reading one JLA comic book issue where Martian Manhunter linked the minds of Superman and the Flash was telepathically able to see through Superman's X-ray vision, and then he phased into a guy's head to do a similar effect where he messed with his brain to remove his superpowers. And then, of course, you also have the Identity Crisis arc, which was all about the Justice League performing brain surgery on villains to make him less evil. It's such a bizarre use of superpowers that has been kind of a recurring motif among DC superheroes.
Yeah, it's kind of like Clockwork Orange in a way, where it's like, can you force people to be moral? And it is not ethically sound, I would say. But of course, in the Justice League versus the Elite storyline, the effects were temporary. Like Superman made Manchester Black think that he killed all of his allies when he really didn't. So he was just kind of giving them a taste of what it would be like if he was evil. It's a great storyline, great movie. Definitely recommend it to anyone who has not yet seen it, though I just spoiled it all for you. Sorry, guys.
See it in action. Don't just take Jonathan's word for it.
Right, exactly. Well, great answer, Travis. Our next honorable mention goes to Cyrus Moore, who said,
Hey guys, Cyrus Moore here. I think the best Superman moments happen to be in the movie The Death of Superman. I think it's got some of the best fight scenes with Doomsday, and I think it's the best Superman movie personally. It's probably one of the saddest, but it was also great to see Superman save Lois Lane in the Doomsday fight, so
yeah, we reviewed The Death of Superman on this podcast when it came out. It was a fantastic animated film. It was like part 1 of a 2-part film that also included Reign of the Superman that was also really good. Now, this wasn't the first time we'd seen Superman fight Doomsday in animation. Of course, there was the Superman Doomsday film that came out like over a decade prior to this film coming out.
When this movie came out, we had also just recently seen Batman vs. Superman, where Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday as well. Out of all the different adaptations of the Death of Superman comic book story arc, I think the Death of Superman animated movie was the best. It was a real tearjerker, but with great action.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. So great answer, Cyrus. Our final honorable mention goes to Baidir Bangura, who said,
Hello, Dynamic Duel. My favorite scene has to be from the end of Superman and Lois. The fact that they have this recap very similar to 6 Feet Under, and they go through all the life of Superman and his family and his kids. Just really embodied all of what Superman is meant to be. Great Tyler Hoechlin scene, great scene in general, and great way to end the DC TV universe.
Okay, so I will fully admit I was not a big fan of the Superman and Lois television series, not for any reason that I didn't like the story or anything like that. I just was always too busy to watch it, and by that point I was kind of done with the CW. That said, Baidir's description of the final scene of the show kind of really makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, I kept hearing that it was really good among fans and on Reddit and stuff like that. So I heard the show as a whole was just amazing. And I think if you had watched it, maybe this would actually get the no prize win. Who knows?
Yeah, that's actually very possible. My apologies to everyone who enjoyed the show, who knows that this should probably get the win, but alas, it does not. We want to give a quick shout out to Alex Albro for calling in with his answer, but the winner of this week's no prize is Lorenzo Valdez, who said,
"This is Lorenzo Valdez calling in once again. My favorite Superman moment from a film is the first flight scene from Man of Steel. My favorite Superman moment from a television series, well, there are so many Klana moments that I would want to choose from Smallville, but the one I'm going to go with, because it feels most like what you're soliciting, which is specifically a Superman moment, because it's set at the top of the Daily Planet, it's the Klana kiss from the end of the season 8 episode of Smallville, Power. Klana forever and always, bye-bye."
So I finally realized what Lorenzo is saying when he mentions Klana. And I guess that's like shipping Clark and Lana Lang, which, no, I am anti-Klana. He belongs with Lois Lane. So I'm not really counting the Smallville kiss scene. What I really love about his answer is the Superman first flight scene from Man of Steel, because that was intense. I still remember watching that in theaters and just being so moved by Hans Zimmer's sweeping score. It is hands down, I think, my favorite Superman moment from the entirety of the Snyderverse.
But who's your favorite version of Lana Lang, though, Jonathan?
Oh, like favorite actress? I would say the one that I think is most close to the comics was actually the Annette O'Toole version of the character from Superman 3. She would later actually be cast as Martha Kent in the Smallville television series.
So it's not the Kristen Crook version from Smallville?
No, she was fine. I just think Annette O'Toole was more comics accurate.
I'm pretty sure Lorenzo Valdez is going to want to fight you now.
Come at me, bro. Not that I want to make Clois a word, but Clois forever and always.
I think I've always been more of a Clunder Woman type guy. But congrats to Lorenzo Valdez for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, in a fairly surprising bit of news from this past week, we learned that Jon Bernthal, who plays the character of Frank Castle the Punisher, will be joining the cast of Spider-Man Brand New Day. In a move that makes me go, what is going on? I had no idea what this film was going to be, but I think the addition of Jon Bernthal to the cast gives us a clearer picture. So previously, you and I conjectured that the film could be adapting the Spider-Verse storyline, because we thought maybe Sadie Sink was going to play an alternate universe Gwen Stacy. There are a ton of rumors going around the internet right now, including rumors that the story is going to involve symbiotes and the Hulk. None of those rumors were substantiated, but we did get confirmation from the Hollywood Reporter that, yeah, the Punisher is going to be joining the story, which really makes me rethink all my previous notions, in that they appear to be taking a more grounded approach to this upcoming Spider-Man film.
Yeah, you would think that someone from the Netflix shows, which were all pretty street level and grounded, would make the Spider-Man film somewhat like that, right?
Right. And it makes me think that Sadie Sink is more likely going to be playing Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, because she's a more grounded street level character, I think. And that the villain is maybe going to be the Kingpin, and maybe we'll see Daredevil in addition to the Punisher. Or maybe the rumors are true and the bad guy is going to be Mr. Negative, who is another New York City crime boss who has the power of the Light Force and the Dark Force, which are abilities shared by the heroic duo of Cloak and Dagger. So maybe those guys are joining the story as well. And this really is shaping up to be a more direct adaptation of the Brand New Day story arc.
Yeah, there's currently rumors going around that Nicole Kidman is going to play Negative Woman, essentially.
Oh, I don't know about that. I wouldn't like that. I was kind of setting my hopes on Steven Yeun as Mr. Negative himself, Martin Lee, who's a pretty cool character. He's kind of like Two-Face in the sense that he's a crime boss who jumps between his light side and his dark side, although in this case it's very much literally his light side and his dark side. When he's in his Dark Force form, he appears as a photo negative, kind of. And when he corrupts other people or imbues objects with his Dark Force, it appears as like a photo negative. It can make for some pretty compelling visual effects, I think. But I think the Punisher would make sense as an ally going up against the Mr. Negative crime boss.
I'm seeing a visual motif with all of these characters. You have Punisher, Black Cat, maybe Cloak and Dagger, maybe Mr. Negative. It's all black and white. And maybe even Black Suit Spider-Man? I could see the movie posters now.
They'd have to introduce the symbiotes, though, if we're going with Black Suit Spider-Man. But who knows? Maybe Venom is in the movie, too. At this point, I feel like anything's possible, but I gotta assume that the film is taking a much more bare bones, down-to-earth approach to its story.
Maybe not, especially if there's symbiotes involved.
That being said, Bernthal's portrayal of Frank Castle, the Punisher, is pretty damn rated R, both in his show and in the Daredevil series. I'm wondering how they're going to get away with that in a PG-13 Spider-Man movie. Like, what the hell is Peter Parker going to do when he straight up sees the Punisher rip a dude's throat out?
It's probably going to happen off camera.
And then you see Spider-Man puke in his mask or something like that.
Boom. There you go. Comedy gold. I just remembered that the Punisher first appeared in a Spider-Man comic.
That's correct. He was a conflicted Spider-Man bad guy who was trying to kill him due to his misperception of Spider-Man that he was a murderer at the time. It's really interesting news. It'll be interesting to see who else gets added to this Spider-Man 4 cast, especially if they're coming from the Marvel Netflix universe, which is, now part of the MCU. But there were a lot of characters there, and that brings us to our question of the week. Besides the Punisher, and obviously Daredevil, which of the former Marvel Netflix characters would you want to see in the next Spider-Man film, and why? Now, we're excluding Daredevil here because I think everyone will pick him, but if Marvel were to include either Jessica Jones or Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Elektra, etc., we want to know who you guys would most want to be in this film.
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before June 28th. But moving on to DC news, we learned last week that DC Studios has cast its lead actor in the upcoming Clayface live-action film. And it looks like the actor Tom Rhys Harries will be playing the titular Batman villain. Now, I have no idea who this guy is. I looked at his IMDb. I have not seen a single one of his films. To me, he looks like the white Rami Malek. But I'm okay with that, because they both kind of have these haunting looks with the high cheekbones and sunken eyes. I'm sure the guy's a fantastic actor, considering he's British and they tend to play more technical performances, which I think is perfect for something like a Clayface film where he's an actor and needs to be able to play different personas, I guess you could say.
I don't know much about the actor either. I like the way that John Starosky put it best on our Discord server regarding the actor's appearance, in that he looks like if David Bowie fucked a Skarsgård. And I thought that was pretty apt.
Now, the film is going to be directed by James Watkins, who also directed the horror film Speak No Evil. And the original screenplay draft was written by Mike Flanagan, although apparently the Oscar-nominated writer Hussein Amini has done rewrites. It's produced by Matt Reeves, who also produced the Batman Caped Crusader animated series, which did a fantastic rendition of Clayface. And I'm really hoping that this film takes some of the horror cues from that television series.
Yeah, I think we mentioned before on this podcast that 2024 had like 4 or 5 different renditions of Clayface on different television shows and stuff, including Suicide Squad Isekai, Batman Caped Crusader, Creature Commandos, and Harley Quinn.
Yes.
I just want an amalgam of all those versions rolled into one.
Yeah, maybe not the Harley Quinn version, but yeah, I love the rest of them. I don't believe there's a release date for this yet, but it will start filming fairly soon in the UK. In other DC news, we got our official trailer for Sandman Season 2, which is being released in 2 parts this year. If you listen to our review of Sandman Season 1, you'll know that I'm a huge Sandman fan, and I loved that first season. Ever since then, I've been stoked for the continuation of that series on Netflix. Season 2 will be the final season, but it does look like it's going to wrap up Sandman's story nicely. We're going to be moving through a lot of story here, everything from Dream's return to Hell, to him finding his son Orpheus, to his involvement with the fairy folk, to ultimately the vengeance of Lita Hall and the Furies, it's going to be an epic season, no doubt. Again, one of the coolest aspects, I think, of this season in particular is that we get to see all 7 members of the Endless, including Destruction, who we missed out on in the teaser trailer for this season. Of course, we get Gwendolyn Christie returning to her role as Lucifer. We get to see the demon Azazel, who's like this shadowy, morphing creature full of eyes and teeth. We get to see Nada, who is Dream's true love in the series. And we get to see Jack Gleason, the actor who played Prince Joffrey, play Puck in the Sandman show, which I think is perfect casting.
That is, yeah. I was surprised to see King Joffrey. I was like, what the hell is he doing here? He just has such a weird, sinister face. But as the character of Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream, yeah, that's perfection.
Now, the story of Sandman has always spanned centuries, and it looks like we're going to see that as well, which is one of the more epic aspects that I love about this story, is that it's not just confined to one setting, one time frame, one set of characters. It can really go anywhere, and it does. For any of those unfamiliar with the Sandman story, I definitely recommend watching Season 1 prior to the release of Season 2 on Netflix. The first part is coming out July 3rd, just a couple of weeks here, and Volume 2 is coming out July 24th at the end of the month. I can't fucking wait! And I just kind of want to sleep until the show starts. I liked the trailer that much.
Actually, regarding the newcomer perspective, that's one of the things I thought about while watching this trailer was, if someone hasn't watched Season 1 or is completely unfamiliar with the Sandman story or universe, I gotta wonder what they think about this trailer, because it really goes all over the place. You said, the story spans centuries, but it's not a straightforward fantasy series in the way that most people think of fantasy series. And I gotta think that as a newcomer, if this trailer was the first thing I saw, I would be so compelled to watch it because it looks so damn good.
So damn good, so damn expensive still, which I love to see.
Yeah, the visual effects are on point. The cinematography looks amazing.
Yeah, again, wake me up when it's July 3rd. But that does it for all of the news for this episode, so now let's go ahead and move on to the main event, where we pit the Green Lantern Guy Gardner against the Thor villain, Gorr the God Butcher. Okay, the Green Lantern Guy Gardner versus Gorr the God Butcher. Now, I will be totally honest and say that Guy Gardner is not my favorite Green Lantern. In fact, he's probably one of my least favorite Green Lanterns. But as I mentioned earlier, he does have a lot of fans out there.
I feel like a lot of people just have like a love-hate relationship with him because he's kind of a douchebag, but an endearing one in that he frequently gets his ass kicked by Batman, like punched in the face.
That was one time.
Put in his place,
He's kind of there to be a punching bag for, I think, other heroes in a way. He doesn't really take any guff from anyone except when he does. And that's satisfying, I guess.
I guess also he does have a lot of heart in that while he is kind of a dick bag, he is well-meaning and legitimately heroic.
Yes, as you will hear later on in my backstory for Guy Gardner, he's definitely very stubborn, doesn't know when to give up, and because of that, yes, it does make him very heroic, and he rises to the occasion.
I think Gorr the God Butcher would also see himself as heroic in his campaign against basically all deities. We mentioned briefly Gorr's inclusion in the Thor Love and Thunder film. There's so much that movie got wrong, from his appearance to his powers.
What about his origin?
His origin is incorrect. It's a shame that Marvel itself screwed it up because who knows when we'll get to see a more correct adaptation of Gorr on the screen. One of the many reasons that I'm still pissed off to this day because of that film, and hopefully I could do the character more justice in this duel speculation. But to explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the contestants is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomized the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 1,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character. The contestant with the higher percentage is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither character should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we'd like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations would play out beat for beat. And I believe it's my turn to go first with the Marvel character's backstory, so let me tell you all about Gorr the God Butcher. Gorr was born with a crippled leg on an unnamed desert world whose twin suns scorched the ground and whose nights were stalked by leathery predators. His tribe taught that droughts, quakes, and famine were divine tests, and that prayer and sacrifice would bring relief, yet no deliverance came. His father died of sun fever, his mother was taken by beasts, and every one of his children was claimed by starvation or tremors. A violent quake crushed his pregnant mate Ara, leaving only their son Agar. When famine finally seized the boy during a desperate march toward a rumored fertile land, Gorr buried the child, a forbidden act according to his tribe, and renounced the gods. For blasphemy, his people stoned him and left him to die in the wasteland. Alone and dehydrated, Gorr saw two armored figures streak across the sky and crash nearby. One shone gold, the other was a living shadow wielding a black, shifting sword. The shadow was Null, an ancient evil you can learn more about in his duel against White Lantern. Null's weapon, all black the Necro Sword, was the first symbiote that the deity had created, a thinking mass of liquid darkness that bonds with hosts and feeds on rage. The Gold God begged Gorr for help, but in realizing gods were real and had ignored his family, Gorr's sorrow became fury. The Necro Sword slipped from Null, wrapped around Gorr's arm, and hardened into a spear. With it, Gorr slew the Gold God, felt the symbiote's darkness join with him, and swore to butcher every deity in existence. While Null could have pursued his weapon, he instead allowed Gorr to wield the All Black, recognizing the mortal's vengeful heart as a mirror of his own hatred for the light. All Black granted Gorr flight, super strength, and rapid healing. He could mold the symbiote into armor or weapons at will. He also shaped black berserkers, large shadow creatures that obeyed him. For thousands of years, Gorr traveled from world to world, murdering gods of war, harvest, song, and even flowers, convinced the universe would be kinder without beings who demanded worship while allowing suffering. During the Viking Age, Gorr reached Earth. Thor Odinson, then a brash young god of thunder, found a dead North American deity on an Icelandic beach and tracked the killer to Russia, where the Slavic gods lay slain. Gorr ambushed Thor, chained him inside a cave, and tortured him for 17 days, demanding that Thor reveal the path to Asgard. A band of Vikings stormed the cave, distracting Gorr long enough for Thor to sever his arm with his own axe, Yarnborn, and strike Gorr with lightning. Gorr survived and fled, determined never to be weak again. You can learn more about Thor in his duel against Wonder Woman. Seeking greater power, Gorr attacked Kronux, a palace guarded by the time gods. After killing its defenders, he entered their pool of raw time to travel through history. At the dawn of creation, he slew one of the first elder gods and ripped out its glowing heart. Far in a future timeline, he captured gods from every pantheon he could reach. Only an elderly King Thor, last ruler of Asgard, remained free, caged yet unbroken. Gorr forced his prisoners to mine star cores in order to build the God Bomb, a device that would wipe out every god in every era through time. Back in the present, Thor noticed prayers going unanswered and followed the trail to Gorr's fortress, where he was caught and chained beside his older self. Black Berserkers then seized the Viking-Age Thor so the Butcher could parade 3 versions of the same deity before his ultimate victory. The Thors escaped and hurled a fragment of a star at the God Bomb, but Gorr survived. To supercharge All Black, he ordered his Berserkers to slaughter his enslaved gods, feeding their energy to the sword and making himself unstoppable. Gorr used All Black to create copies of his former wife and kid, Ara and Agar, for company. When the Ara construct called him "my god," he vaporized her in rage. The Agar construct, horrified, freed Thor the Avenger and begged him to stop his father. Gorr hurled the young Thor into space, activated the God Bomb, and waited for divinity to die. As the bomb detonated, the surviving gods of every timeline prayed in unison. Their faith flooded Thor the Avenger, and wielding both his own hammer Mjolnir and King Thor's future Mjolnir, he battled the Butcher across a dying moon. The youngest Thor struck the final blow, beheading Gorr and ending a 3,000-year crusade. Though dead, the All-Black sword, carrying a copy of Gorr's mind, endured. Years later, the spy Nick Fury whispered a secret in Thor's ear learned from the murdered Watcher Uatu, telling Thor Gorr was right. You can learn more about the Watcher in his duel against the Monitor. Doubt washed over Thor, so much so that he became unworthy to lift Mjolnir. During a war between the Norse realms, the dark elf Malekith bonded with the blade and called himself the Butcher of Thors, until Thor defeated him. You can learn more about Malekith in his duel against Eclipso. Far in the future, millions of years later, King Loki merged with All Black and rebuilt Gorr's body from living shadow, setting him against an immortal Allfather Thor. You can learn more about Loki in his duel against Ares. Gorr crucified Loki and Thor on spires of darkness and tried to spread the sword's darkness across every star. Thor's granddaughters, Atli, Elisiv, and Frigg, freed their grandfather and rallied gods saved long ago by Thor. Atli severed Gorr's head, but it was only a shell. All Black's darkness had woven itself into the very fabric of space. Loki stalled Gorr by reciting every heroic deed Thor had ever performed. The endless tale bought time for Thor to release the God Tempest, a cosmic storm trapped inside Mjolnir. The Tempest shredded All Black. Stripped of power, amnesiac, and raving, Gorr was left mortal. The Skylords of Indigar, the same planet whose rescued gods had once prayed for Thor, took Gorr in to live as a simple farmer. Yet the Necrosword's residue had replaced Gorr's heart. Memories crept back in, and with them his hatred, restoring him in the present day. Fixating on Jean Grey, newly reborn as the Phoenix, Gorr ambushed and killed her on the barren planet Dogar. The Phoenix resurrected her instantly, overwhelmed Gorr, and ignited and collapsed his dark heart, transforming it into a newborn star so that at last, Gorr would give life instead of taking it. You can learn more about the Phoenix in her duel against Raven. And that's Gorr the God Butcher's history. Powers-wise, Gorr is a mortal alien whose heart was replaced with the darkness of All Black the Necrosword, a primordial weapon composed of living abyss forged by the primordial entity Null using celestial energy. Though the Necrosword was returned to Null's hands, Gorr can still use the portion of living abyss that is now part of him. He can shape this darkness to his will to form constructs such as weapons like spears or a sword, which is its preferred form. Gorr often uses it to form a cloak, but can create armor or wings or even semi-sentient wolf, lizard, insectoid hybrid-like creatures called Black Berserkers. The living abyss grants Gorr strength enough to lift over 100 tons, invulnerability, increased speed, regenerative healing, and immortality. Having lived for millennia waging combat against deities, he has become an adept combatant. And that's Gorr.
Gotcha.
So, if it takes 3 different Thors to defeat Gorr the God Butcher, Guy Gardner has his fucking work cut out for him, doesn't he?
I mean, not really. One Green Lantern can easily take on 3 Thors. What are you talking about? Yeah, you heard me.
I couldn't have less respect for you than I do right now. Just want to let you know.
I'm okay with that. I'll get it back when I win the duel, Let me tell you about Green Lantern Guy Gardner. Now, Guy Gardner was born in Baltimore, Maryland, to a turbulent household dominated by his abusive alcoholic father. Frequently compared unfavorably to his older brother, Mace, Guy developed a tough and combative personality to shield himself from constant ridicule and physical abuse. Despite the toxic home environment, he showed potential both intellectually and athletically, earning a scholarship to the University of Michigan. There he studied education and psychology and played football until a career-ending knee injury forced him to refocus on academics. He eventually became a social worker and later a teacher working with troubled youth, driven by a desire to help those in need escape the kind of upbringing he endured. Unbeknownst to him, Guy possessed the qualities necessary to become a Green Lantern: willpower, courage, and a strong sense of justice. When the Green Lantern of Sector 2814, Abanto, crashed on Earth and lay dying, his ring identified two worthy successors, Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner. Jordan, being closer, was chosen. Gardner became the backup Green Lantern, though he only learned of this years later, when the Guardians of the Universe, the creators of the Green Lanterns, informed him directly, in an admission that wounded his pride and fueled his lifelong rivalry with Hal Jordan. You can learn more about Hal in our Green Lantern vs. Nova Duel episode. After learning of his alternate selection, Guy trained to serve as Hal's substitute in the event of his incapacitation. He eventually received his own Green Lantern ring and joined the Corps. Though his attitude and temperament often clashed with the more disciplined members, his effectiveness in battle earned him a reluctant respect. Initially assigned as Hal's backup, Guy took on more responsibility following Hal's frequent off-world duties. His first major outing came when Hal was captured by Sinestro and taken to the antimatter universe of Cord. The Guardians activated Guy's ring and directed him to rescue Hal, but he was intercepted and captured by Sinestro's forces. Subjected to mental torture, Guy was presumed dead when the Guardians lost contact with him. Eventually rescued and returned to Earth, Guy suffered severe psychological trauma and was placed in a comatose state. He remained that way for several years until the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, when the Guardians reactivated him as one of Earth's Green Lanterns. Though he awoke, the mental damage had altered his personality. He emerged more arrogant, aggressive, and unpredictable. The change was partially due to brain damage, which affected his emotional regulation and heightened his volatility, making him a wild card among the Corps. When the Guardians later decided to leave the universe and choose successors, Guy was given a ring and declared the official Green Lantern of Earth. However, his bombastic demeanor and combative style often put him at odds with his peers, especially Hal Jordan, John Stewart, and Batman. He joined the newly reformed Justice League International, a more politically driven version of the League, where his brash personality acted as a constant source of tension. Despite this, he became a core member of the team and formed a unique rapport with heroes like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. You can learn more about the Justice League in our team duel, Justice League vs. Avengers. His time with the League included several humiliations, most famously being knocked out by a single punch from Batman, but also triumphs, including missions to Apokolips, battles against Despero, and defending Earth from alien invasions. His overconfidence and crude sense of humor masked a deep need for validation and a fierce loyalty to his team. After Hal's transformation into Parallax, Guy lost his ring during the destruction of the Central Power Battery. Refusing to stand idle, he sought alternative means to remain a hero. He embarked on a quest to acquire Sinestro's Yellow Power Ring, and when he was successful, he used it to continue fighting crime, though the ring proved unstable and more difficult to control. Seeking greater power, Guy ventured into the alien realm of Cord, and later tapped into a mysterious inner energy linked to his DNA. This transformation turned him into Warrior, a being capable of morphing his body into weapons and armor. The source of his power was revealed to be his descent from an alien race called the Voldarians, biologically engineered shape-shifting warriors bred for combat. Embracing his new identity, Guy became the proprietor of a bar for heroes called Warriors. Eventually, his Voldarian powers faded, and Guy returned to using the Green Lantern ring when the Corps was restored. He served as a senior Lantern alongside Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and Hal Jordan, operating out of Oa and protecting Sector 2814. He also worked closely with the Honor Guard, the elite leadership force of the Corps, and participated in campaigns during the Rann-Thanagar War and the Sinestro Corps War, where he fought valiantly against Yellow Lanterns and other cosmic threats. In the post-Flashpoint timeline, Guy Gardner remained a Green Lantern and continued to be depicted as one prone to acting before thinking, but with unwavering courage and a strong moral compass. He served with distinction in the Green Lantern Corps and took part in major battles, including defending Oa from the invading Red Lantern Corps. During this campaign, he was briefly possessed by a Red Lantern ring drawn to the deep well of rage within him. The experience left a lasting impression. When Atrocitus, the founder of the Red Lanterns, launched a new assault on Earth, Guy volunteered to infiltrate the Red Lantern Corps as a double agent. You can learn more about Red Lanterns in our Atrocitus vs. Juggernaut Duel episode. The power of the Red Ring proved to be too seductive, and Guy's infiltration turned into a reluctant allegiance. Eventually, he embraced the identity of a Red Lantern fully and became their field leader, wearing their crimson sigil and maintaining order among the volatile ranks. Under Guy's leadership, the Red Lanterns transformed from a brutal militia into a more structured force focused on dispensing vengeance and protecting the oppressed. He developed a complex but mutual respect with Atrocitus' rival Bleas and established a Red Lantern base of operations on Earth, though he struggled with controlling his rage-fueled powers. After several adventures, including cosmic conflicts and battles against shadowy manipulators like the Shadow Thief and the Shadow Market, Guy relinquished his Red Ring and returned to the Green Lantern Corps. He served on Mojo, the sentient planet that for a time acted as the Corps' HQ, helping train new recruits and operating as a senior lantern within the Honor Guard. When the Green Lantern Corps was merged with the Sinestro Corps during a fragile alliance brokered by Hal Jordan and Soranik Natu, a Yellow Lantern, Guy was among the few Green Lanterns who attempted to make peace with the Yellow Lanterns. His unlikely friendship with the reformed Arquilo, a hulking brute and enforcer from the Sinestro Corps who's often compared to Kilowog, became a standout moment during this period, as the two warriors bonded over their mutual love of brawling and begrudging respect for one another's strength. Now that's Guy Gardner's backstory. Powers-wise, Guy Gardner wields a Green Lantern power ring fueled by willpower, granting him the ability to generate solid light constructs, fly, generate force fields, and survive in space. His constructs often reflect his brash personality, manifesting as blunt force weapons like fists, bats, and hammers. For a time, his Vuldarian DNA allowed him to shapeshift parts of his body into weapons and armor, giving him enhanced strength and durability. Even without powers, Guy is a trained hand-to-hand fighter.
Wait, so does he have his Vuldarian powers or does he not?
Technically, he still has his Vuldarian DNA, though he hasn't used it since, the early 2000s.
Well, you said he has the DNA, but that his powers, disappeared over time.
It was during the Green Lantern Rebirth storyline where he went through this tremendous amount of pain where it seemed like his DNA was rejecting his body or something like that. But that was all quelled once a Green Lantern ring flew onto his finger and he emerged once again as a Green Lantern. So it didn't leave his body. It's still there. Again, he just hasn't made use of it.
And will he have a red ring in this match or just the green?
I'm going with his traditional green ring, although I loved the fact that he was a Red Lantern for a time. I thought he made a fantastic Red Lantern.
I thought a Red Lantern ring couldn't be removed from a Red Lantern without killing them.
There have been a few instances where they've been able to circumvent that, particularly when there's I think it's a Blue Lantern is present.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know why I'm asking so many questions, because I don't care, because this dude's going down.
Oh, we'll see.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday. And Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
Now that we've got their histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not the speculation, but it's fun to imagine how the fight could play out. AJ9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the characters have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other character is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the contestants will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The contestants must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then let's get into it. Green Lantern and Gorr the God Butcher meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
I'm actually going to say Guy starts off, and he's going to do so by undoing his belt buckle, pulling down his pants, mooning Gorr while giving him the middle finger.
Gorr is unamused.
Oh, but Guy is, so.
Well, this amusement is going to turn into pure shock when all of a sudden he finds a dark tendril up his pooper.
Aha, but that's exactly what Guy wanted to happen. Because while Gorr was distracted by Guy's ass, Guy's going to generate a pit bull behind Gorr that's going to chomp down on his ankle, while Guy, meanwhile, is going to block that black tendril with the green toilet that flushes that tendril, and its plumbing just redirects it right into the ground.
All right. I'm going to say, first of all, Gorr was not distracted by Guy's ass.
Sure he was.
I will say that he does take a second to straight up murder the pitbull construct. Using his necro sword to cleave it in half from its jaws. Then Gorr creates his own creatures, a pair of black berserkers that chase down Guy like a couple of rabid wolves that just devour him alive.
Okay, but I'm going to say that these creatures are going to be blocked by a row of giant-sized football defensive linemen, and from behind them, Guy's going to generate a football and hurl it straight towards Gorr with perfect aim, and it's going to explode upon contact because it was actually a bomb. And that's going to send Gorr flying backward while Guy does a touchdown dance.
A football bomb?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'm not sure what kind of football explosion would actually even hurt Gorr, but I know that he's already fucking had it with Guy's shenanigans. So Gorr instantly recovers from this football bomb and blitzes Guy sword first with enough force to cut through a freaking sun. And he straight up flies through any sort of defensive constructs that Guy creates to protect himself. And Gorr slices right through Guy himself like a dark bullet train.
Oh no, Guy doesn't generate anything to block this attack. Instead, he's gonna hold up a green cape that hides his body, and as Gorr slices through it, Guy dodges to the side like a matador, shouting, "Toro!" And Gorr's gonna fly right past him. But Guy, he's immediately gonna hurl a lasso after him, catching Gorr by the ankles before proceeding to quickly hog-tie him, all while wearing a cowboy hat and bandana, by the way.
Man, Guy is annoying. But do you think that Gorr is just limited to his arms and legs? Even if Guy manages to restrain Gorr's limbs, Gorr is just going to create a dozen more of them out of living abyss. And all these extra limbs, they're like scorpion tails, and they each simultaneously reach out and impale Guy from all directions on their stingers. Actually, two of them form blades that free Gorr from his bindings, but the rest of them impale Guy.
Wait, they like stab through him with long stingers?
Yeah.
Okay, so Guy probably, falls to his knees, but before he can get stabbed again, he's going to generate a dozen chainsaws that are going to sever the scorpion tails. And just as Gorr frees himself from the lasso, while Guy is still on his knees, a giant green fist with brass knuckles is going to plow into Gorr.
Wait, Guy should be dead from getting impaled a dozen times.
Well, actually, Guy has like weird organs due to his Voldarian DNA. Like he has 2 hearts, and he could also heal rapidly because of his shape-shifting nature. So yeah, he's hurt, but he'll be fine.
That's so weird. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because even if Gorr gets punched by this fist construct, the stingers that Gorr stabbed into Guy Gardner, they left this dark residue within Guy's body. So it doesn't matter what the hell Guy's organs look like on the inside, because it's all just infested with shadowy maggots that feast on his body in just like a matter of seconds. And it looks like Guy gets covered in darkness, but then he just dissolves into nothing.
Well, again, Guy's Volderian shape-shifting body will just shift those maggots into a Gatling gun that he transforms his other arm into that's not armed with a ring. And he's going to fire those maggots right back at Gorr, which, I don't know, probably isn't going to hurt him.
Yeah, Gorr would just absorb them into the rest of his living darkness.
But once the maggots are done, he's going to transform his Gatling gun into a grenade launcher, and he's going to launch a nuclear-level implosive grenade that's just going to leave Gorr a dark stain on the ground.
What the fuck is an implosive nuclear grenade?
I guess the technical term would be a Volderian fragmite bomb. I don't know, it has like the destructive force of a nuke, but it sucks things up like a mini black hole. It's from the comics.
Okay. Well, Gorr blocks the bomb with his cloak so that when it goes off, when it implodes, it just pulls in all of the living abyss. Like, all of that gets sucked into the implosion. But Gorr himself is still left standing. And Guy, in all of his cockiness, he didn't anticipate this. So as the living darkness dissipates from the bomb, Guy's not paying attention. He's assuming Gorr was imploded too. And then all of a sudden, he gets fucking rocked right in his nose by Gorr, who is now mortal. And since getting punched in the nose real hard is apparently Guy's weakness, he falls to the ground, just completely knocked out, and he loses the match.
Fuck. I can't even say that wouldn't happen. I guess we'll leave it there. Either Guy defeats Gorr with some Volderian fragmite bombs, or Gorr just knocks Guy out with a sucker punch to the face, apparently.
Well, let's find out which of these scenarios happens by running the stats on these characters, running the simulations, and coming back with a winner.
AJ9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
All right, this didn't turn out to be quite the repeat of the White Lantern versus Null Duel episode that I thought it was going to be. I think we managed to do a pretty good job of differentiating these two matches.
Yeah, it wasn't hard, honestly, with Guy. He's kind of different from other Green Lanterns, not only in terms of his brashness and attitude, but also in terms of his physiology. He's part Volderian. And I didn't want to play that up into the stats too much. I still think his ring is his primary weapon.
But he has contingencies, we'll say. And that is what gave him the edge in versatility over Gorr the God Butcher. As versatile as Gorr is with his Necro Sword, and he does some interesting things with it, like he used it to create the God Bomb and stuff like that, but largely he sticks with swords and tendrils and dark creatures and stuff, compared to a Green Lantern ring, which Guy tends to get a little bit more creative with. Again, in addition to his alien DNA.
The two did share a lot of similarities when it came to the stats, though. We both said they were equally fast, equally evasive. When it came to strength and damage level and range, they were also on par with each other.
We did give the fighting skill edge to Gorr the God Butcher just because he has millennia of fighting experience. And we also said that longevity meant he was smarter than Guy, who's kind of dumb.
Yeah, he's definitely done some really dumb stuff in the comics. But we did give Guy the edge in perception because Green Lantern rings can scan things and give the bearer added information.
Yeah, there weren't too many perception feats for Gorr the God Butcher. With all that said, Jonathan, who's taking home the win here?
I gotta give it to Guy. I think his versatility is going to give him the edge here. And it looks like our Instagram poll takers agree with me. Just barely, though, because 52% of our poll takers voted in favor of Guy.
That's one of the closest polls I think we've put out there.
Yeah, really close.
So it seems like this is a pretty good matchup in our followers' eyes. But let's find out who actually won. AJ9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
All right, the winner between Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, and Gorr the God Butcher is Gorr the God Butcher.
Damn it!
Looks like Guy Gardner got sucker punched right the fuck out.
So
As a matter of fact, Deadpool came out when this match was over and told Guy Gardner that he got knocked the fuck out. Out of 1,000 matches, Gorr the God Butcher won 571, whereas Green Lantern only won 429.
Really? Okay, I thought that was going to be a little bit closer. I thought this was essentially going to be a coin toss. And I am kind of sad that it wasn't. Again, Guy is not my favorite Green Lantern, but I also just really hate Gorr.
Why? What's wrong with Gorr? He deserves this. Did you see how they massacred my boy in Thor Love and Thunder?
Yeah, that's why I don't like him. That whole movie, just everything about it is awful.
Well, maybe Superman will be bad and you'll hate Guy even more too.
Yeah, no, that's that's not going to happen. But that does it for this duel. AJ9K, help close us out.
Thanks for listening to Dynamic Duel. Visit the show's website at dynamicduel.com and follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Duel Podcast. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dynamicduel and joining a tier that works for you, or by rating and reviewing Dynamic Duel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website. Don't forget to listen to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network, including Max Destruction, Senjo World, and Console Combat.
In our next episode, as a tie-in to the 4th of July holiday, we are doing a fireworks-related duel with Jubilee versus Static.
Yeah, I've been dying to get a Jubilee duel in here at some point, and the executive producers couldn't think of a better time than around the 4th of July. And I agree.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Mickey Matanguihan,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Nick Abanto,
Scott Camacho,
Gil Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Dean Maleski,
Devin Davis,
Joseph Kersting,
Josh Liner,
Mike Williams,
Oscar Galvez,
and Paul Graves for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away!
True believers.
I thought a good tagline for this episode would be the Gardner versus the Butcher, but then I was like, nah, that's boring.